Please note that the content of this episode has explicit language and is not suitable for underage listeners. Hi, I'm CJ, and I've done phone sex for 24 years. Let's get started. First off, I want to thank you for listening to Secrets from a Phone Sex Queen, everything you always wanted to know about phone sex and more. Please reach out to me with your questions and comments, anything you want to say, phonesexqueen1@gmail.com. If you're listening on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to receive notifications on when new podcasts are dropped. I had another new caller recently who said he just wanted to talk. Okay, let's talk. What he really meant was he wanted to talk and I needed to listen. Not that we should have a conversation or anything. And I'm okay with that. It's less work for me, so go ahead and talk. He proceeds to tell me that he and his wife are not very nice to his mother-in-law. I wasn't sure how to take that, and I did ask what that meant. I was kind of concerned because it could go in so many ways. He says, well, my wife and I have orchestrated it where she walks in on us fucking, or her daughter giving me a blowjob, or some sexual act. My comment was, oh, okay. She would stay in the room or right outside the room and watch. There was a lot of sexual acts where the mother would catch them, thinking that they were not home possibly, whatever the case is. And he really liked that. And the story continues where the mom would catch them in the bathroom taking a shower together or having sex with each other, and the mom would catch them over and over and over again, doing kind of filthy, naughty things. The story then continues where the mother would find out that they had threesomes. Well, she didn't find out, she was told. With another woman. So it would be the two women and a man. And that was okay, not a problem for her daughter to do that. So I think at this point, I'm realizing that they really just want to shock the mother-in-law. And so he proceeds to tell her that her daughter is bisexual and so is he. So they've had threesomes with men where the men do both of them, where he gets fucked, he fucks the guy, he sucks a cock, and, all three of them have a really good time. The mother isn't too thrilled about that, but what's she gonna say? Her daughter and her husband are adults, and she is a little confused as to why he is telling her all of this. And, of course, with his wife's permission, he tells the mother-in-law all this stuff. So as he's telling me all of this, I'm thinking, it's great, I don't have to do anything, but listen. So then he proceeds to continue, and the story with the mother-in-law continues where she's not particularly happy hearing that her daughter is having sex with African Americans. You see, the mother-in-law is a little racist, and he tells her that her daughter has had sex with plenty of African American men. Not happy about it, but again, she's like, what am I supposed to do? What he left out of the story until this point, after telling me over and over how many times they've shocked the mother-in-law, is that his wife is a meth and fentanyl addict and that she will do anything, pretty much anything, with anyone to get her drugs. I often wonder, of course, why are people telling me this stuff? And is it really true, or are they just trying to shock me as well? And if I don't come across as shocked, then what are they getting out of it? Is this all just a bunch of lies? And he's getting off on telling me about these lies? I don't know. But I always act like it's true. I did not hear anything in his voice to make me think that he was masturbating at all. I think he was just telling me these stories to see what my reaction was. Of course, the reaction in my head, not out loud, is for him to keep talking. I don't care if it's true or not. Just keep talking. It's the easiest money I make because I don't have to do anything or say anything other than, oh, really? And he keeps talking and talking about what he and his wife do in front of his mother-in-law, around his mother-in-law. I was waiting for him at some point to say that his mother-in-law finally got involved with the two of them, but that never happened. It was truly all about shocking the mother-in-law and telling her all the things that he's done with his wife or what she's done on her own. I'm not really sure if he got off, and I'm not really sure what the point of the phone call was, but I was okay with it because it lasted about 20 minutes. He did tell me that his wife was going to rehab, but I'm not really sure what the point of that is either, because it doesn't sound like they want to stop their lifestyle. He then abruptly hung up and he didn't say anything like goodbye. He just hung up, and I thought, well, maybe he wanted me to say more than I did, but there was no prompt for me to say more than I did. There was no pause. There was no question. There was no anything other than me saying, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was pretty much it. That was my contribution to the conversation. So don't know what to say about that other than it was another kind of interesting phone call. Yeah, I've started to feel really bad for the mother-in-law. She seemed so innocent in all of this and just continually catching them having sex. But it wasn't even them. It wasn't even her catching them. It was orchestrated so that she would catch them or see them or find them or something like that. Oh, well. I have a caller who I've told you about who calls me with this teacher-student role play every single time. I'm not bored with it, but it's just every single time the same thing over and over again. I'm supposed to resist, but not resist too much. I'm supposed to give in. On this particular night, he called me and we had our role play. We hung up 20 minutes later. He called me again. We did the same role play with a little variation. He hung up. Both times, of course, he came. I thought the second time he was calling me, we were just going to talk because we've done that before. He's called me where he's had no phone sex and he's just wanted to talk. So about half an hour later, he calls me again. And I thought, this is very strange. He keeps calling me. This is the third time. He called me and he told me he was drunk. He didn't sound drunk to me, but he said he was drunk and he did remember the other two calls. So it wasn't like a surprise to him. But again, he did a variation on the teacher-student. This time I think I was his daughter-in-law, and it's always some type of forced sex, just a lot of coercion, or I have to give in. After the third call, he did not call back. I think he was done. He appreciates the fact that I take the same calls over and over again. He mentions that almost every time he calls me. I think he called it a perversion or something, which I really don't think it is. I think it's a preference more than a perversion. I think that if you have one overarching fantasy and that's what you want every time you call, then you should get it. Nothing wrong with that. You can call me 100 times with the same thing over and over and I will still do it. The men are spending the money. They should get what they want. That's how I feel. Regardless of how I feel, they need to get what they want so they can be satisfied and happy. It's not an inconsequential amount of money that they're spending, and they've chosen to spend it with and on me. Even if it's a minute or two, I don't know how many other women they've spoken to before they've called me. Not my regulars, but other guys. You know, if I have a new caller, I don't know how many women they've gone through to come to me and hopefully stay with me. Like I've said before, I feel kind of bad. I wish I was available all the time. So when someone writes me, I could talk to them, but my schedule doesn't allow that. And I hope that when my schedule does allow that, they call me and they realize, hey, I'm just as good or better than the other women they've spoken to. So I've gotten this question a couple of times. I think I've answered it before in earlier podcasts, but I'll answer it again. Why do you feel the need to share the information like your phone callers? What's the point? And to be honest, I think that's a fair question. What is the point? People are very curious. You know, you ask someone what they do for a living and they tell you their profession. And then you ask sometimes more detailed questions about what it is they do. There are follow-up questions. So again, I've mentioned this before. When people ask me what I do, I tell them, and that elicits more questions, typically about my day job. And there are times when I tell them about my night job. Obviously, not all the time, but I do tell them occasionally what I do at night. And then it goes into this, oh, that's interesting. I've never met anyone who does that. What do you do? And then there are a lot of questions that go from there. There is a tremendous amount of misperception of what I do on the phone. I've had people think I've been a stripper, I've been a hooker, I come from a broken home. All these things are untrue. And then after they realized that that's untrue, then they want to know what kind of calls I get. Much like my callers asking me, what kind of call did you get tonight, or calls do you get? I have to either tell them or I don't tell them. But the question was, what's the point of sharing? And the point of sharing really is a curiosity of what the job is. What do I have to do? What kind of calls I do? Do I hate men after doing this for so long? Do I masturbate to calls? You know, those are the typical questions. B is, the point is also to share people's interests, to let you know, the listener, that you're not alone in whatever fantasies you think about, want to play out, to know that you're not weird, period. To give you permission. If you listen to this podcast and there's something that resonates with you, a fantasy that someone's called about, a thought that someone's thought, and you resonate with that, then possibly you can move forward in your life and play out that fantasy or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of reasons why I'm doing this. It's not just because I want to hear myself talk, or, it's certainly not self-serving. It's more about you, the listener. People listen, they're curious. It's like being a voyeur, but listening and instead of watching. I don't have any problem sharing, and I don't think there's any harm in sharing. I think there are too many things in life that we don't talk about or share that would help all of us, Here's an example of something that should be shared that isn't typically shared, that's non-sexual, just so you get an idea. So women get to a certain age where they laugh uncontrollably, cough uncontrollably, and they kind of pee a little in their pants. I know that's the last episode about peeing, but my point is no one shares that. They keep it to themselves. They keep it quiet. It's a secret. They think they're the only one. And one day it'll come out in a conversation and they're like, oh my God, me too. What do you do? And that sparks a conversation. How do you handle that? What do you do? And they're like, oh my God, me too. What do you do? It helps you realize you're not alone, that maybe they have some ideas, some suggestions. Now, phone sex isn't quite like that because nobody's going to talk about their fantasy with someone else other than their partner, possibly, hopefully. But the point of sharing is so that you don't feel alone and that you can enjoy what you enjoy without feeling guilty or shame or anything like that. Because I don't want anyone to feel shame, even on my last podcast where I was talking about the men and the blood, and I don't want anyone to feel shame by what they feel. I want them to be able to express themselves. That's really my hope. I've said this in many podcasts that I really hope that you feel comfortable enough after listening to maybe one of my podcasts to share with your partner or friends, whoever you want to share with, what you think about, because the more you share, the more comfortable you'll be, even if it's just with a partner. A one-time partner or someone that you've been with a really long time. That's my goal, is to make you feel more comfortable. And if I've done that, that's great. Even if it means, like I said in the last one, calling me, talking to me about it, that's awesome. I have no problem with that. So that was my answer to those people who asked me, what's the point of this podcast? Is really to share so that you all feel comfortable sharing as well. I want to hear stories of you guys sharing. You don't have to tell me what you shared, but if you write me and tell me that this made you feel more comfortable, at ease, or just gave you permission to role play whatever you want to role play or express your fantasy, or whatever the case may be, that would be super awesome. I'd love to hear it. Shoot me an email. We don't even have to talk on the phone. That'd be great. I'd love to hear from you guys, so I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry it was a long-winded answer, but I felt a need to explain that to you, and hopefully you feel better now for it. If you don't care, sorry for going on and on. It's really important to me. I mean, sharing is really something that I think can help a lot of people, and so that's what I'm hoping for here. That's all for this week. I want to thank you for listening to Secrets from a Phone Sex Queen, everything you always wanted to know about phone sex and more. Please reach out to me with your questions, comments. Hey, if you want to be a caller, let me know. I will be happy to take you on as a customer. My email is phonesexqueen1@gmail.com. New episodes drop when they drop. I will try to be more consistent. Check me out on Facebook at CJ's Podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new podcast is dropped. And until next time, stay sexy.